I just want to start with another round of applause for Day and the whole JCCSF team because I feel like it's a Diana moment because not only is that an amazing exhibit that's mind blowing, they got it up in record time. Was it 2-3 days? I mean, bananas. So it's like Diana would
No,
have
really,
been enough
bananas.
if they spent months installing that, but they did it like a week ago today. It wasn't there. So just another round of applause for everyone because I know how many people it takes to get something like that to happen. So really just amazing. Yeah, really, yeah.
I shouldn't. I know you're going to ask questions, but
Sorry.
you kind of did. Um, not only was it not there, but as of Monday at noon, only one table was built.
Like, I actually don't get it, honestly. I as someone who's produced shows, I was saying I've worked with artists, and it takes them that much time to hang up 4 framed paintings and put the vinyl on the wall, and that's like 3 days solid. So my mind is blown knowing this after experiencing it, which I think roughly half of you have already experienced the installation, half of you aren't. You're in for a real treat. So wow, and kudos and bravo, yeah. So yeah, as Gail was saying, you got this. You guys were in the process of getting this grant right before October 7th, and you had some vision of what you wanted to do, and then things changed. So I'm curious, what were you thinking before, and is what we experienced today like? What did that evolution look like for you in that time?
So, excuse me. So, when Gail called, Gail, I think I was. Where are you? I think I was like in the airport. I was like leaving to go someplace, and you called and were like, "This is a grant that we should apply for." And the first thing that came to mind, I was in my mind like, how I want to reinvent a Jewish ritual object. I knew I wanted to reinvent something. And the first thing that came into my mind was the Seder plate. For all the reasons that you mentioned, like it's the Seder table is our altar. It's a home altar. The Seder plate is the altar of altars. It's all organic material. Excuse me. It is the food is a storytelling device. And it's a way that we tell stories to remember and make the story relevant again. And so I knew I wanted to reinvent the Seder plate. I told this the other day at the opening, but we had our first meet. We applied. We basically, I just was like, I'm going to do more altars, and we're going to reinvent the Seder plate. We had no idea what we were going to do. They gave us the grant, which was amazing. And we had our first meeting, and I don't know, that felt like there was like 10 or 15 JCC people on board, and you all came at me with like spreadsheets, and I was like, no. I need a year to dream. Leave me alone or like 9 months or something. I was like, I need you to leave me alone for 9 months. I can't talk to you about facilities. I can't talk to you about planning, marketing. I don't want to talk about that. And then I said, and after 9 months, I need 3 months to play. And I need to make mistakes, and I need to have fun, and I need to just try things out. And I can't get lost in telling you the way it's going to be. So every time we gathered, I basically was like, this is a snapshot of how it is right now. But it might change, and it did up until like 3 days ago. And so, and then 9/11, and then October 7th happened. And things changed in the community. And then I'd say like the next major milestone for me in this project was my Seder last year.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about that next.
Yeah.
Because, right, the piece is really a container to process so much of what we're all experiencing in political terms and emotional terms. And I read in your reboot essay that it really came from the Broken Seder was quite literally a very personal and real experience for you. It's not some abstract concept.
Some people are here from that Seder in this audience.
Welcome. So yeah, so I'd love to hear more about that and what that Seder was like. It was, I guess, last year.
Yeah, last
right?
year.
Yeah.
Passover is it feels like my holiday. It's my favorite holiday. I love leading Seders. And I find that I've been very good at holding a space for questions and uncertainty at my Seders. I mean, the Seder itself puts questions on the altar. That is the whole point, is like, how do we stay curious about the times that we're in, about those times? Like, how do we keep asking questions? It's such an interesting technology. We ask the children to ask questions. They're modeling for us curiosity and wonder so that the adults can remember what it's like to stay curious, because as we age, we get more certain. Anyway, last year's Seder, I found myself in too much certainty. And I got super hard with a variety of people at my table and overwhelmed. And there were moments of contention and anger and polarization in my house at my table. So much so that one of our mutual friends said, at the end, she was like, I feel like we're on an airplane and the wheels fell off and we have to land this thing. That's how she put it. And I went to bed that night and I woke up the next morning feeling shame. Feeling like I disappointed them and myself. You and I, Sarah is in the audience, you and I had conversations about like maybe doing a salon and discussing what happened. I had to make tikkun, healing, with a friend of mine who we had a major showdown during the Seder. So it felt like the Seder table broke in half. That was in my mind. It felt like the table broke. And that echoed for weeks, like the Seder table broke. And then what was happening simultaneously with October 7th was it felt like my community and our community, the bigger Jewish community, was also breaking. Felt like there was splintering inside my personal community and our community. And simultaneously, I was also at the same exact time just feeling super constipated online. I have a public presence. I don't feel like I can engage in the conversation publicly. It feels like a minefield. And I'm watching colleagues of mine who have no relationship with the region giving their opinions all the time. And so I was feeling super, I don't know a better word besides constipated. I was feeling very constipated and very angry. And I knew, and so like it lined up with Gail's request of we're making art, and we're making ritual. And this is the avenue for me to express myself. I don't need to add more opinion on social media. I don't need to consume more news. We are overwhelmed with news and opinion right now. But we are not overwhelmed with art and ritual to mark these times and try and navigate through them. So then we've had 10,000 meetings. They all do. Anyway, during one of the meetings, I got a vision. And the vision was of a broken table where there were rope tying it together, almost like a book binding. And the rope was like really taut. And I was like, whoa, that's an intriguing. I don't know where it's coming from, but like I like it. It's like, how do we put this thing back together? Which, by the way, etymologically, the word art means to put back together. That's the root of the word art, RT, the Proto-Indo-European word, means like Humpty Dumpty, to put it back together. Because art in some ways takes the broken thing or the thing that you're seeing in one way and it creates a whole other way of seeing it. So you can see it differently and relate to it differently. So anyway, I got this image of the table and the rope, and then I sat with that for a few weeks, and then I realized it's not the rope, it's the Seder plate elements emerging from the broken pieces. And then the whole thing just started to like swirl and become alive in my mind. And then this has been if you're an artist, maybe you understand this, but this is both a dance, it's a conversation, it reveals itself when it wants to reveal itself. I mean, 3 months ago, I was having a massage, and it brought me into like the heart of this installation, and I got visions. And 4 days ago, one of the tables wasn't working out, and I completely reimagined it in like 3 minutes. So the whole thing has been very alive, but to me, the core of it was, how can we express the landscape, the emotional landscape of being Jewish right now? And how can I tell that story through the tables?
Thank you. And what I think is so compelling about your work, and what draws so many of us to your work, is that the ritual piece, right? It's not art to be passively consumed. I assume that the making of it feels ritualistic for you, and certainly the experience of it feels ritualistic for us. I was telling Day, my children went to some hokey optical illusion museum in LA with my mom, and one of the rooms, everything was giant, so you felt like a tiny person in a world of giant saucers and plates and toasters and whatnot. And I felt like that at the end in the best possible way. Like I felt like I was like a ladybug wandering around a Seder play by then. And inside that felt ritualistic. That was like shamanistic, right? Like it expanded my sense of possibilities of what Seder can look like this year and forever. So I'd love to hear more from you, like kind of internally, the ritual piece of making this for you, because you had a ritual last year, and I love, by the way, the constipation metaphor in passive setting, because we can really run with it. Like you had too much matzah, you had too much affliction, it was stopping you from being free. Yeah, so how let's go with it. How did it release the constipation? How did the making of the piece, but really actually feel like it was not just making art for the JCC, the spreadsheets and the meetings right now, but actually, brought you to a more expansive place on how to think about how to not just feel Jewish right now or do Jewish right now, but also connect Jewishly right now?
I'll start recently and I'll work back. So those of you that have been in the exhibit, the roots table, the very first table that you see, has my ancestors in the soil. Yeah, they're my granny died this summer at 98, Shirley. And before she died, she gave me a photo album. And the photos in that album, I don't think they had left that album in 60 years. So I brought the album here, and I tore the plastic off of each photo, and I put them in the soil at that table. And as I started to plant them, I'm from New York, excuse me, the fucking San Francisco Symphony is rehearsing next door, and they start playing Yerushalayim Shel Zahav as I put the first photo in the earth. And so I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Right? Like, I felt Shirley.
Yeah.
Because I was putting her parents in the earth. I was putting her grandparents and her great-grandparents in the earth.
Yeah.
Right? And by the way, I had been dreaming of ritualizing her funeral for years, because I do that. And I had flown to Florida. This has nothing to do with this, but anyway, I'd flown to Florida to visit her. She died 3 days after I left. And as soon as I got home, I got COVID. And so I was so sick, I couldn't grieve her. So I've been holding that. Speaking of constipation, I've been holding her. So when I put her in the earth here, something happened.
Wow.
Like I felt her moving through the roots of the rosemary branches. So that's just most recently. But throughout this entire time, the whole thing has been a way of remembering. Tonight's theme is ritual. Well, it's art as ritual, ritual as resistance. So what makes it resistance? What makes ritual a way of resisting, especially the times that we're in? And ritual, okay, so I'm going to share another etymology. The etymology of the word ritual literally means to count, but my spin on the word means almost like to count like a musician counts, a dancer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. It's repetitive, right? And that's a way that musicians, when they're playing together, or dancers, when they're dancing together, can stay together, right? So we have ritual because being a human being, we forget. We forget what it's like to be a human. Look around. It's the times that we're living in. We're forgetting what it's like to be human. So when individuals and when cultures have ritual, like Passover, it's our way of coming together again to do that. Oh yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, right? It's like, oh right, this is what it means to be a human. This is what it means to be a Jew. We remember where we come from, and we make it real again. We remember. So the resistance is to forget. We're resisting forgetting through ritual.
Thank you. Yeah, and I mean, I think so many of us right now feel impotent. You know, today there was protests all over the country, and I think still with the ceasefire ending, like wherever we are, I think there's just this great sense of we want to be doing things, and we even if we're doing something, it doesn't feel enough, or maybe we're doing the wrong thing, or maybe we're not doing things, and because we don't really think the things that we could be doing are right. So I think it's such a beautiful reminder right now to really think about that these smaller intimate acts, these acts that don't necessarily have a defined ending or outcome, can be a form of resistance. And I think that's really helpful to you. And one thing that really struck me about the piece was, speaking in a way of resistance and ritual, is there's a very deconstructed nature of it, right? It's we all go, you move through it, and all of our memories, all of our stories find their place at that Seder table, and everything from also, right, like there's these very grounded details of the Haggadahs, the Haggadot, and the tablecloths and the plates, but also there's literal space, right? There's actually the openness of the table being broken. There's the mix of darkness and light. There's amazing sound component that Forrest did. So it's really kaleidoscopic. It's deeply immersive, kaleidoscopic, and brokenness in the best possible way. So I just want to hear a bit more from, like the decision to make it, to create lots of space, right? Space and really almost, I'd say, productive chaos in there.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, it was always, the broken tables themselves, like I always knew something wanted to emerge from that. Like the bones wanted to come through that. And so they really just informed the space between the tables. I wanted, for instance, the bone table. Like every table, by the way, has an emotion to it that guided me. Every table, also dressing the table, had like a decade that was guiding us, or me. Every table like had a certain color scheme, these types of things. I mean, they had their own personalities. So the bone table, for instance, like I wanted it to feel like skin being ripped and bone being exposed. And that to me was sometimes how I felt inside of this world, like being Jewish right now. It feels sometimes like I'm too exposed. I'm too raw. It's too raw. And it's freaking uncomfortable. And so I wanted that, and then we paired the music or the soundscapes to evoke that feeling of exposure. And so, in terms of the space, like how much space did that brokenness need in order for this thing to emerge from it? And so every table kind of had that dance of either too close too far? Like speaking to each other, just how can the broken pieces be in relationship? Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. This is making me want to go do it all over again after. I would love to hear a little bit about your childhood seders because, right, the Seder plate is not just a memory portal. I mean, so much of Jewish ritual, right, involves imagination and taking these kind of portals to distant times. And there's the collective memory, but also I feel like our individual memories play in so much to what Seder means to us. So I would love to hear a little bit, whatever you're willing to share, but how is your childhood Seder experience coming through in that piece, or what memories do you have of Seder that are informing this?
There was the first table has my family's Haggadot on it. A week or two ago, I don't know time, but anyway, sometime recently, I was having trouble sleeping in the middle of the night, and so at 3 a.m, I took out one of these Haggadot, and I started reading it, and there's like all the memories in it, the wine stains in the Haggadot. There was some piece of fabric from anyway, it just like it was a portal back to that time. And I came from a family, my own parents were not, they were culturally Jewish, but it was my mom's sister and husband who were the like captains of Judaism, who were the kind of the midwives for me to move more closely into my Judaism. And Seder was a very real, serious, like, you're getting on a ride and we're not ending till 1 or 2 in the morning. And my uncle got off on reading every single word, like, welcome to the Seder, like every year we're like...
Copyright,
yeah,
1972.
Yeah. Like saying the same thing 2 nights in a row, like the same thing. But, and it's funny, I reread those words at in the middle of the night, and I was like, this is good, but it felt a little stale to me. And I mean, it's old. That book, the Haggadot are from like the 60s, but it felt a little kind of above it all, And I remember when we used to have seders, there like sometimes we would invite guests, and there would be this, because it was by rote and because we were reading, the heart wasn't always there. And the heartbreak wasn't always there, and the relevance wasn't always there, but the tradition was there. It was almost like a holdover, like we were doing the moves, right? Thank God we were doing the moves, because they landed in me. But this thing, I just got a tattoo a few months ago, and it says, "Reinvent the world to stay in it." And it's from one of my favorite books called The Law of Dreams. And it's all about the Irish potato famine. But essentially, I got this tattoo because we know what ritual looks like when it's just a shell. And unfortunately, we don't have enough artists and visionaries and poets and songwriters to help infuse the religion, to help infuse Judaism with the understanding that the rituals need to be reinvented too. They don't not just need to be continued. They need to be reimagined. They need to be respun. They need to be reinvented. They need to be kept alive. And so, to me, this is my way of saying, I love this ritual, but there's something else right now that needs to move through it. And the only way to do it is to break the fucking tables. That's the only way for something new to emerge through it. So it's very, very much felt like a birth, where something is moving through this that's never been seen before. That's why it's felt very exciting to me, and maybe moving to you, is that this is very much Passover. But there's something else, and that's why the sound was needed. Thank you, Forrest. Is because we needed to weave in social media and the government and all the things that make this story relevant today. As opposed to we're only telling the story of being slaves back then. And so, we have to keep on reinventing our traditions to make them live again. That's how I see it.
Yeah, amen. And I think that is a tradition, right? Like we can't forget that is actually written into Jewish culture over time and space. So
Totally.
it's actually part of the DNA and it's part of the survival technology, right?
It is, but there's something that happens with displacement. When people are displaced from places they've lived a very long time and they get uprooted, deracinated from those places, and they have to go someplace else, they get very like this. We have to keep the thing. We have to solidify it, otherwise we're going to lose it. And that's a trauma response. It's not, being able to play with something. It's hard to play with things when you're in the middle of a war or being displaced or trying to find your way, right? So, I am only able to do what I'm doing because my grandparents and great-grandparents really kept something together, kept the broken shards, right? And then they passed them on, and I got them, and I was like, what do I do with this? I don't want to just keep it like this. I want to bring it back alive again. But there's real trauma in our people. And that it's not that easy to reinvent when you're in the trauma response.
I'm not sure, Gail, how much time I have. Time for one more question and then Q&A? Does that sound about right? All right. There's a
We were just getting started.
Yeah, I know. It does feel that way, but I'm watching the clock, and we in fact have been speaking for quite some time. All right, this is a quick one, but it's like a BuzzFeed quiz that I made up. But is there one symbol on the Seder plate? You don't have to explain it, but that you like most, and then I have a real question after for my real last one, that you most connect with, like on a Kishka's level.
On the Seder plate?
Yeah, your favorite Seder plate item. That's like the one. Does one speak to you the most?
Probably the plate.
Oh, I like
the container of it all.
Nice.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they all speak.
Yeah.
But I think the container.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, now my real last question.
Okay.
So, right, I mean, the Seder's broken. There's the brokenness is built into the Haggadah, right? There's brokenness all over, right? Both the Passover experience, the Seder, and this installation. And, at the same time, I experienced a somewhat of a trajectory of hope, right? And it's built in to the Seder, it's built into the Haggadah that we break the matzah and the bread of affliction becomes dessert later, but we have to go and find it, which is something I think the rabbis did to keep kids busy, which honestly is a genius move, but it still has, has poetic import too. So, I'm curious, was this me being a kind of an optimistic leaning human by nature to feel like the movement through the installation brought us to a place of rebirth and hope with kind of the parsley or the karpas or the ending on the green table? Is that something?
Yes.
Okay. Because you know what? Hope, it's like,
I'm not one to smoke the hopium.
Yeah.
But, however, I did intentionally put that table there because I wouldn't say it was hope. To me, it's like the equivalent of a catastrophe in which the living world grows through it. Is that hopeful? I don't think so. I don't think it's the realm of hope. I think it's something else. It's not hopeless. It's not hope. It's coming back together. Sure, resilient. It's like, to me, the word togetherness is what that table feels like. Like, we're in this together. Is that hopeful? I don't know. But it feels like at least we're not fucking alone.
I think that goes for hope these days, honestly.
I mean, we could all be scared together. I don't know if it's hopeful, but at least we're like, Gail, you said why did I choose to partner with the JCC? Because there's something deeply rooted in me that is so proud to be Jewish. Like, deeply rooted. It's a golden thread in all of my work. in my books. But I also, like, I'm not satisfied being Jewish in a certain way. I want to keep wrestling with what this means. And therefore, like, I have a deep love for my community, but I also am deeply undone by how the community is breaking right now. And so I want to somehow bring it back together. And I know my like main navigational systems these days are ritual, art, and nature. And so that last table is my nod to the living world that says, like, let's learn from her of how to stitch the wound back and heal it. And together, we need to do that. We can't do that as individuals. We have to come together. And that's why you all are traveling through this together. It's not an individual, like, let's go see this one, you're a group that's moving. And that's on purpose.
Beautiful. Thank you. Not sure. Are we passing a mic or people just projecting or what's
Project.
Yeah.
We'll keep one with you, and then he'll do the answer. Yeah, I'll bring.
Thank you.
Any questions from the audience? Over here on your whatever's right side of this. Go ahead, Snita.
Okay. Hi. Beautiful, really moving exhibit. Thank you so much, and thanks for your words.
Thank you.
I just had a question based on what you were just saying, because when we got to the last table, it reminded me in certain ways of the first one, which struck me as like very like death forward. The first one did, and when I saw the last one, it was the most beautiful karpas I've seen, and I also was so aware that all of the green matter was dead. And I just was
Like
curious.
pulled from a tree, you mean?
Right, yeah. I was just curious if there was any significance to that or if you were thinking about that.
I mean, yes, all the time. I mean, my career is working with nature through an artistic medium. So, I have my own guidance principles of how to take or receive and be in a reciprocal relationship with nature, but there is some compromise of like bringing nature into a space. It has to be removed from the tree or from the ground. So yeah, I mean, it's, to me, that speaks to the non-absoluteness of it, right? Like, even in what you're feeling is hopeful, there's also heartbreak in that. And what feels like nature coming together has also been removed from nature. So there's paradox even in that table. And I was deeply aware of it as I was receiving that from the living world. Like, it hurt me to take in that way. And so I had my own process of asking for forgiveness, et cetera. And it just brought me more deeply into the complexity of being a human and what does it mean to, it's like we have to kill to eat, to be alive. We have to. So it brought me more deeply into heartbreak, which also brings me more deeply into love and my heart. And it's not one thing. I don't know, does that make sense? It's just so many things. And, being the artist, the beautiful thing about art for me is it holds it all. And I love that. And that's why, I had a friend recently, like a few weeks ago, be like, so your art installation, which side is it on? Oh, oi, but like, I get it. And I was like, well, it's not on any side. She was like, oh. I was like, that's the thing art can do, is it can hold it all. Art can hold it all. Music can hold it all. And so, and I hope, I'm not saying I've achieved anything, but my hope, speaking of hoping, is that it's including as much as possible, so much so that the breaking happens. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. Another question over here.
Yes, thank you. It was so moving and powerful. And I'd like to say that I've been following you on social media for a long time. But when I signed up for this, it wasn't until like just when this talk started that I realized that you were the same artist that I've been following. And I've always wanted to go to one of your events in person, and
amazing.
here I am. One of my questions is, where was your grandmother Shirley from, and what is also your family background and ancestry?
Thanks for bringing up her name. I am fourth generation New York in the house. She was born in Brooklyn, not the Bronx, as she would say. And that joke does not go here. But in New York, that's a good joke. Yes, Queen. Okay. All right. Well, and her mother came when she was. The story in the family was her mother, my great grandmother Rose, was her birthday was New Year's because on the boat they had fireworks, and so she was like, "That's my birthday." They're celebrating me on the boat as she came into Ellis Island. And so, I wrote about this, by the way, in Hello, Goodbye, this book. I would always, for decades, try and mine my grandmother for ancestral stories. And she was like, I'm a dum-dum. I never asked my parents about where they were from or who their parents were. She never asked them that. And she said something to me which was a real clue. And she said, we were American. We needed to be American, and I only just wanted to look forward. And in the book, I said, that's code word for forgetting. We just wanted to forget. She called it the old world, or Europe. They were from Europe. That's a big fucking place. So, they at the time were like all about forgetting. And so my family very much was rooted in New York. But I'm one of the, having a memory of her. My grandmother used to say, stop hawking me a Chinik about the ancestors. But I was the person with her and my family that was I like to tend the dead. I feel them. That's why they're there in that table. And so, and that's where my love of Judaism comes from, is like, I maybe the last 3 generations because of the deracination, like they needed to look forward, which is fine. But I must have come from people that were deeply rooted in their culture because I feel it. So, I forgive the last few generations but I somehow found my way into it again. Thank you for asking about Shirley.
Thank you.
Day. It's Brad.
Brad, hey Brad. I feel like we're on the telephone.
Yeah. Just to kickstart, just to say, first of all, I think your art is extremely powerful.
Thank you.
And your words are extremely powerful. And when you put them together, I do think you're one of at least in my life, one of the great spiritual teachers that I've come across in the world. So it's a real honor to be in your presence and to have you continue making this type of art. I have 2 questions that are interrelated. One, I'm just curious how you're feeling. Like, how does it feel to have done this, to have created this new thing in the world through your being? Just what does it feel like right now? And then 2, do you see, and you don't have to be somewhere where you're not thinking about the future, but I'm just curious if you think there's kind of repercussions, or like this is opening up something for you in some other way relative to the rest of your art, or where you go from here.
Thank you for asking. I would say I have never given birth physically, but I feel wrecked after this. It has been, 16-hour days. Like, I haven't been sleeping very well. I'm contending with something here. So as much as I want, and I do also, of course, feel pride and moved in all of the things, but I've also been holding a lot with this, and also taking a lot of risk with this piece, both as an artist and also with my reputation. I had no idea what to expect, you know, like, I hate to like out the JCC, but I'm not allowed to live stream tonight because there could be a threat. So, you know, I needed to put my name around something October 7th. I had to. But I knew I needed to not put my name around something that was an opinion. Because I don't know what my opinion is. You know, I'm all over the place. So that has felt like I felt courage and scared and like depleted and enlivened and all of the things. And today I went to Kabuki, so I feel a lot better. And I don't know, I really remember your second question, but I remember what I think your second question was, which might be different, which is I really, really pray this has a life beyond here. And I don't know what's going to be, but I'm going to hold on to these tables hoping it moves someplace, because I'd like other Jewish communities around the world to be able to have what we had and to experience it. And so I'm putting out a little whisper to the universe right now that says, like, take the baby, like, bring it someplace, let it live someplace else. Let other Jewish communities explore this reinvented story. Was that your question? Okay, great. I like that.
I have, let me bring you a mic.
We got mics.
Is it on? Yeah. Thank you. I'd like to ask you if you'd be willing to deconstruct how you did this, because it's hard to remember and easier to remember if you can go through the steps of what was done. Number one, is this a special kind of wood, and in what way did you break it such you came up with such a beautiful but macabre appearance of the broken wood? Number one. Number two, are those cow bones that you used for the legs, and where did they come from? And number three, where did you get the rosemary branches that look dead to me? It's just,
They're not branches, they're roots.
okay, roots. I understand you put this together physically in 3 days. I can sympathize that it can take months for the evolution of what to create, because the same thing happens to me. And then all of a sudden I put the thing together in a few days. But was this stuff gathered up earlier than the 3 days?
First off, you from New York? Okay, East Coaster. Okay, let's start in your first question and work backwards. Shout out to Michael Cutbirth. I called up this carpenter friend of mine who works in a carpentry collective in Penn Grove, and I said, Michael, I'm not calling to help you make something. I'm calling because I want you to help me break something. I told him the vision, and he said, I'll call you back. So he eventually said, the collective wants to support artists, so we're a yes. So I went to his wood shop, and the very first thing we did was start looking at tables. How do we break dining room tables? How the fuck do you break a dining room? I have no idea. He had no idea. And not only that, how do you break a dining room table so that it looks interesting and not just, split or whatever? So then we realized, and then like Gail and Hannah and Julia and I, and like we were looking at Facebook Marketplace for dining room tables, and remember that? And then we said, forget it. We can't do that. So what do? So we have to simulate a broken table. Okay, so then we spent like 3 weeks talking about wood. We tried maple, we tried 10,000 different types of woods. And then we found Doug fir, which is what's in there. Okay, so Doug fir started to break like we wanted it to. So, but then, there's a lot of wood in there. how do we do it so that my body doesn't break doing it? Okay, so then we had to figure out, like, how do we break wood so that it looks interesting? And then we tried physically. So then we came to this idea of creating a ramp. And then we put the wood on the ramp, and then we drove a truck onto the ramp and broke the wood. But the wood was like partially broken. So then I had to put it into a thing with a crank, and then rip the wood and use my entire body to, and thank God Trump was elected, because I got to like really like bring out my rage. And then each piece hopefully had these like beautiful shards that would just like, and all the sounds of the wood breaking in there is that wood breaking. And all the sounds of the eggshells crunching are me stepping on eggshells, sending it to forest. And so I would get these beautiful shards, and then we had to make hundreds of them. And so then the next step was, how do we create the table? Because they had different colors. Some were blonde, some were salmon. They had different grain threads. Some were really close grain, some were far. And so I had to put them together to find the color and the grain patterns. And then I also had to find the edge of the table so that it moved in a way that I wanted it to. So like, oh, this piece goes down, I want this piece to go up. So it was a lot of puzzle playing. And then I hammered and glued all the wood. And then I looked at the table and I was like, it looks too thin, like one layer of wood. So then I had to flip the table and put in a whole other bottom to it. So all those tables was like 5 months of work, every day breaking wood. Buffalo bones and deer bones at the feet. And they came, and I then smoked all the bones in a fire pit. And then I blow-torched all the bones, because the bones on our Seder plate are sacrificial bones. So they had to carry that smoked smell and feeling. And the carpenter people were like, you're insane. And it stinks, so bring that outside. And so I smoked and found, like, how did I want the fire to play with the bone? Which is fascinating, and I got super interested in like fire and bone, which I never thought I'd be interested in, but that was interesting to play with, and pattern making on the bones. And what was your third question? The roots is a friend of mine's land who I put out a call in the Jewish community where I live in Sonoma, and she said, we're just uprooting rosemary, and we're throwing it on a burn pile, and then come and get it. And for some stupid reason, the day I came to get it was one of like an epic storm. And so they threw other plants on top of it. So I'm like soaking, ripping like trees and trying to get to these roots and ripping them out without trying to like break the beautiful roots. And then I found out like recently that they were rosemary, which is perfect for the ancestors. And yeah.
Thank you.
And other little things that you don't know.
Over here, Morgan, gonna stand.
Oh, sure. Thank you for your incredible vision sharing this evening. So I'm a person who has a great appreciation for ritual, and you shared how the world and the rituals of your last Seder table influenced the art that we're seeing now. I'm curious how the art and your experience in creating this piece will influence this year's Seder, and you might not be there yet since you literally just finished putting together this show 4 days ago, but how you're thinking that your own ritual of Passover may be transformed after this work.
Great question. It might not be this year. I might need the breath from Passover. I'm going to a Seder, but we'll see. I've been in Passover for 5 months. Like, my friends had a Purim party, and I was like, I'm already in Passover. Literally. I couldn't go to the Purim party. I don't know. I don't know is the real answer to that. I think, if anything, this has redeemed my willingness and faithfulness to jumping back into that ritual with curiosity. And so, and to like really get in, like there is so many interesting hidden doorways in Seder, so many interesting paths. Like it feels like I'm on a mountain, and sure, there's these like main paths, but there's also like other pathways that not a lot of people, like for instance, the Afikomen was one that, you know, like I was like, oh, I really want to get into Afikomen in this. And so to me, like maybe the rabbis did it as a way to entertain the kids, but there's something the mystics in our tradition understand the value of the hidden. They get it. And to put that in the hands of the children, so smart. The children teaching the adults, right? Transforming the pain, transforming the brokenness back into sweetness and wholeness. And also the thing you need to finish the ritual. You cannot complete this ritual without that piece, without the afikomen, the dessert, but which was the broken thing. So, you know, there's so much value to the hidden and how it transforms. And as an artist, by the way, like it's really intense to reveal something that's been hidden. Like I work with I do trainings with people, and they speak a lot about how nervous they are to share what they've made with other people because it's really vulnerable. But there's something transformative that happens when you take the hidden thing and you bring it back out, and it transforms. And like this thing is no longer mine; it's ours. I've heard 10,000 interpretations of this thing, which is amazing. So I don't know. I'm going to go in with a lot of curiosity and like a lot of, you know, kind of sitting back and just like seeing if I could find new trails.
I have the second to last question over here, and then Lily will end with you.
Hi. I would love to hear you talk more about how you selected the elements of the different tables and the soundscapes paired with the elements of the Seder plate. You talked about a little bit with the emotions and the decades. And when I was walking through, I found myself very curious about like why some tables had Haggadot and others didn't, or which Haggadot were with which table. And yeah, you're welcome to address specifics or the process, however you'd like.
Sure. Thank you for asking. I'd say every table had a personality. I was learning the personality months ago, and as I was making it, I knew, for instance, we had a meeting where we were trying to, we were trying to like dress the table, and I was like, listen, here's how we should look at it. Like the roots table, think 1970s, like think vintage, like browns and yellows and like deep reds. I wanted to feel like you're at your grandmother's table in the 70s, like the roots, you know, and so these things inform, for instance, the bouquets on the table. It informed, like, I wanted Manischewitz on that table. You know, I wanted it to feel like the old school Jewish, like the ones from like, you know, that's identifiable to our elders here. Whereas like, you know, the bone table, I think I called it like the 80s table, right? And like I wanted it to feel kind of like cold. The roots table, by the way, like Faris, when you first sent me the sound design and you put in Hatikva, like that felt really assaulting to me in like a good way. I don't know why it shouldn't. It's Hatikva, but it did. But then I asked you, like, we need to mess with it. Like almost like it's trying to emerge from the ground and it gets like pulled back in and it's trying to like come back up, right? And so the sounds were, I'll give you a really good example. The brick table in there, which by the way, that design came like 3 days ago. We were like trying to build a wall and it just wasn't working with, and anyway, and I love it even more. But the brick table, when we were designing it, I said, think the leaders, Putin, Trump, Sinwar, the Ayatollah, like think about the people that are like pushing an agenda. They're certain about how things are. The table itself needs to feel gaudy, like you're going to like Mar-a-Lago, golds and purples and rich, but fake rich. And then we did the sound, and then I remember like a month or two ago, I was like, there's something missing, Forrest. Like, it needs Pharaoh, right? And I was like, you got to put in things from the 10 Commandments. So like you can hear Pharaoh and Pharaoh's wife in the sound, and they're playing with Trump, and they're playing with, Netanyahu, and so that table is all about hardening of the heart, the wall, the like certainty, the like you're not going to change my mind. I know what's right. This has to happen, And so that's why there's like and amazing. A few days ago, like the pyramids came through on the table, which was pyramids. So, and so each table has color schemes, and every Haggadah was chosen, the bouquets were chosen, the color schemes were chosen, the characters in the sound design were chosen, like all to serve an emotion, all to serve a feeling.
I have interlude comment here to share to layer in some more beautiful wisdom, and then we'll have a final question from the front.
As a fellow Brooklynite,
Yo. Thank you. Thank you.
the Jewish ethnobotany educator that's here tonight, and I just want to say for my discipline to illuminate some of the beauty that you brought today. You chose rosemary roots, and rosemary in English tradition means rosemary for remembrance. But in Jewish Sephardic tradition, it's romero, and it means to, it's significant to fight the evil eye because the smell of it repels the demon. I just wanted to add that. And I also wanted to say that the Doug fir that you chose as the wood is used by our traditional native communities on the coast of California for digestive aid. So put that in relationship to the concept.
Touche.
Did you have a question?
Touche. Thank you for that. I want to just like real quick like coattails that and just say, you said something interesting. First off, I love everything you said, and you said something interesting, which was you chose the rosemary. I want to just say, when I'm working with the living world, it's not one directional. Could it be that it chose me? Could it be? Could it be that the living world, if it's alive, also has a say in what gets played out in the art, right? So it's just interesting. I don't always put with art, how can we always put ourselves in the driver's seat? If anything, we have to move ourselves out of the way so something can move through us. And so I just want to shout out, not just to Brooklyn, but to nature, right? That it's also speaking through. And thankfully, in some ways, I have the capacity to listen sometimes, not all of the time, but sometimes. And it gets those little amazing nuances like you just pointed to that I couldn't have dreamt of, but that they happened.